All right, well, good evening. We just came from one meeting to the next, and thank you. I'm so thankful that you are here and that we're able to do our PTSO meeting and then follow it up with some information on integrated math. So I shared with you that we have some district representation here tonight that are going to help us understand what integrated math is and the change that's coming. And so I'm going to introduce Joe Bass, who's going to introduce to you the team. So, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight. It really means a lot that you're here to learn about math and how it's going to change for your children. So thank you. I really appreciate you being here. I will go ahead and make an admission in front of everyone and the television audience that I am not very good at math. Raise your hand if you're with me. Okay. I'm comfortable saying that I'm not very good at math, but I really shouldn't be, because I don't think that I would feel as comfortable standing here saying that I'm not very good at reading or I don't like reading. But for some reason, we don't really value math as much in this country as we do other subjects, and that's something that we want to change. We want to build the importance of math in your children's lives and help them do better at math in school and be more prepared for math in college, and so that's what we are about. I know in high school I was guilty of saying I'll never use algebra in my life. Raise your hand if you ever said that. I'll never use algebra. I know that that's not true, because I now know that I do use algebra, but at the time it didn't really seem relevant to me because I didn't have a connection to it. I didn't really feel connected to math, and I didn't always understood exactly how it worked. So we are going to strengthen math instruction and build the value of math. To do that, we need to connect students with it so they understand it as a whole, and we're going to do that through something called integrated math. So to understand integrated math, let's talk about how we teach math now. Right now we teach math, kindergarten through 8th grade, as one continuous whole. We teach math class. Students don't go to addition class and subtraction class, they go to math class. All the subjects and concepts are interrelated. They all connect, they all are linked to one another, and we teach them as one whole. Then suddenly in high school, we teach 3 different classes: Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. It's all the same math, all the concepts are just as related as they were before, but for some reason we separate them. And Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 are the same subject, but they're separated by a full year. And we have a gap there when students are learning different math skills. We often ask students just to memorize equations and procedures, but don't really help them understand how it works and what the underlying structures of those procedures are. And so that's something we want to change. To do that, we're going with something called integrated math. Integrated math, all it is the same continuum of math skills that they learn in kindergarten through 8th grade. They're getting an integrated class. It's integrated math 1, integrated math 2, and integrated math 3. All the same concepts, all the same standards, taught with the same level of rigor, just taught in a different order. Instead of algebra and geometry being separated into separate classes, they're now taught together, layered on top of each other in one class called integrated math. And we do offer honors at every level of integrated math. So what does that look like? It kind of looks like this. If traditional math is separated, algebra, geometry, algebra, integrated math is taught as one continuous whole. They're learning geometry in all 3 years. They're learning algebra in all 3 years. If you look at it a different way, these are all the skills that students learn in math class K through 12. We have numbers, operations, algebraic thinking, geometry, data. Then look what happens in Algebra 1. Suddenly we stop teaching geometry. We've taught it all the years leading up to it, and then we stop. And then in geometry, we stop teaching everything except for geometry. There's a gap in every other skill of 1 full year. And again, in Algebra 2, we stop teaching geometry again. This is what it looks like in an integrated pathway. See, the 3 years of high school math, we're teaching all the skills all at once in one class. We just feel like it makes more sense. We feel like by doing this, we can teach skills together that will really help your children have a better understanding of how math actually works and have a deeper understanding of it and a deeper connection with it. Like I said, I'm not a math person. I'm also not a teacher. I'm a communications guy. That's why I bring really smart teachers to talk about math to you instead of having to do it myself. But I have spoken to a lot of math educators in preparing for this. And one thing that college professors kept telling me is, number 1, we need more value for math in our kids. Number 2, when my kids get to college, or when my students come to college, if they don't have an understanding of the underlying structures of mathematics, then they're already behind and they have a lot of catching up to do. And so that's something that we have to do better. We have to connect the kids with math better and help them understand it better. That's what we want to do in integrated math. So like I said, not a math person, but quadratics. This is an example of something your kids learn in algebra Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. I remember learning it in Algebra 2, and I'll tell you how I remember it. When I was in Algebra 2, we learned the quadratic formula. We memorized it by singing it to the tune of Row, Row, Row Your Boat. It was really effective because I remembered it. I still remember the quadratic formula, but I have no idea how to use it. I did not form a connection with it. Algebra 2 is when I suddenly stopped caring about math class. I took Algebra 2 and I did okay, and I went on and took advanced math classes, but I did very, very poorly in them. And when I got to college, I ended up having to take remedial math because I didn't feel like I had a connection to it. I had Algebra 2, my teacher started reteaching a bunch of algebraic concepts, and suddenly I lost interest in it, and math was just kind of done for me. I was done with it. But quadratics is actually a really good example of why we need to integrate math. And so to explain how they're connected, I'm going to bring up Jessica Slayton. Jessica is a longtime math educator in Metro Schools. She's what we call a math coach, and now she is in charge of making sure that integrated math implementation happens. And she's going to talk a little bit about this.
Thank you, Joe. Oh, thank you. So if you take a look at the graphic that's up here, if I were going to introduce this in an Algebra 1 class, which is where you would typically see quadratics for the first time, I might say to my students, the solution to a quadratic equation is where the curve crosses the x-axis, and the x-axis is the horizontal. So this example on the left, you can see, oh yeah, I see where it crosses right here at -2. And yeah, you see it crosses at the 1, right? Oh, okay. So then I might show an example like the one over here on the right. And the students would look at it and say, oh, okay, yeah, I can see it crosses, but it's a little bit harder to tell where it crosses because it's not right at an easy point. So as a math teacher, I would say, oh yeah, there are different ways to solve that, like the quadratic formula previously mentioned. And I would show them the algebraic way to deal with it, right? And then I would have some students who would say, oh, Mrs. Slayton, what about if the graph looks like that? Because it doesn't cross the x-axis. So what's the answer there? And that moment I love as a math teacher because the students are asking the questions and they came up with an idea and they wanted to know the answer. Except this is a horrible scenario for math teachers right now because we don't talk about this third scenario in Algebra 1. You actually have to stop the teaching and say, I'm sorry, I know you're interested in that, and I really want to tell you what the answer is. You just have to wait 18 months till you get to Algebra 2, and then they'll answer that question for you. Now that's frustrating. It's frustrating to the teachers, and it's frustrating to the students, because they were interested, and they were engaged, and that's not always the easiest thing to do. And then the content is actually battling because of the way it's divided right now. So we can't deal with the engagement. We can't build on that engagement and the inquiry that the students have naturally. We have to stop that progression and maybe give a cursory explanation. Oh, here's a little bit of explanation, but you'll talk about it more later. But with the integrated pathway, we'll actually be able to address all of these aspects of quadratics all at the same time. So when students have those questions, we can say, oh yeah, we're about to get to that. Let me show you how it connects. So scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3, we can solve all of them, regardless of which one we see in a different situation. Another example is transformations. So in geometry, transformations are really just shapes on a graph, and the discussion that you have is, how do we move those shapes to different places? And the discussion focuses around the corners, or what we call vertices, and we talk about that, how they might shift. In Algebra 1 and in Algebra 2, we also talk about transformations. But instead, they're graphical shapes instead of what we think of as geometric shapes. And unfortunately, the connections are not really made with those topics, even though they're completely related. In Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, we talk about how the equation changes, which is a discussion you can't really have in geometry in the same way. So even though this concept is completely related, it's addressed 3 different times in different ways. But when we move to the away from the traditional pathway into the integrated pathway, we can make those logical connections for students and show how when you change the equation, it does also impact specific points on the graph. So it will be a more cohesive way to address the topic.
Okay, so we talked a lot about the why. We went through some math examples, thank you. But what is it actually going to mean for your students, your children? Here's what it means. If your child has already taken Algebra 1 or is taking it this year, there is no effect. They'll continue on the traditional path, take geometry and Algebra 2. The reason we're doing that is we don't want students to have to change in the middle of the process. You don't want to have to go from traditional to integrated. That'd be too big of a change. So we're phasing it in. Starting next year, Integrated Math 1 will replace Algebra 1. The year after that, we will replace Geometry with Integrated Math 2. And the year after that, we will replace Algebra 2 with Integrated Math 3. So by 2017-18, we'll be all integrated, and students will no longer take Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. They'll still be learning a lot of algebra and still be learning a lot of geometry. In fact, they'll be learning the exact same amount of algebra and geometry. They'll just be doing it in integrated math classes instead of the traditionally named algebra, geometry, and algebra. So, why are we making this change? Well, there's a few reasons. We feel like right now is the perfect time to make this change, and the reason for that is that, number one, we've adopted the new Tennessee State Standard, so that's done. Number two, we're now adopting new math textbooks. It's time to adopt new math textbooks. So we can go ahead and buy integrated math textbooks instead of algebra and geometry textbooks. So that's the perfect time to do that. And then also the state is building new assessments. You know, your children take end of course exams. Next year there will be a new version of the end of course exam, and it will be offered for integrated math as well as traditional math. So with those 3 things happening at the same time this year, now is pretty much the perfect time to make this transition. But in more general terms, the big reason we're doing it is we feel like it's going to serve your children better. Like I said, we feel like it'll better prepare them for college and higher level math. We think that they'll do better in the math classes that they're in now. And really, the United States is the only industrialized country in the world that doesn't already do it this way. Every other country teaches integrated math. We, for some reason, are stuck on algebra, geometry, and algebra, probably because it's the way we've always done it, and change is really hard. But you know, there's a handful of states that are kind of leading that charge in the United States and helping us push forward integrated math. Utah, West Virginia, and North Carolina are all statewide integrated math. Other states let local school districts make their own decisions. That's what Tennessee does. And so Tennessee now offers the option of doing integrated math in high schools, and we're gonna take advantage of that and do that because we feel like that's the best way to serve all of our students. It'll really help advanced learners, and it'll help everybody else. So that's the way we're doing it. We also, you know, Pearl-Cohn is really big with project-based learning. There's a lot of project-based learning that goes on in these classrooms, and that's a great way for students to get practical application of the skills that they're learning in class. And with project-based learning, integrated math makes a lot of sense, because working on projects, you may be expected to know different math skills at different times. Could be that you need to have some geometry in your first year of high school math or your third year of high school math, and so this will really help with that. So, there are also some counties in Tennessee that are already doing this. Putnam County is doing this. They're in the 2nd year. Bradley County and Warren County are doing this. And then there are other counties around us that are considering it, and we expect a lot more to come on board in the next year or two. I'm going to go ahead and throw this up here, but we're not quite done. If you are on your way out tonight and you feel like you have some questions or you think of some tomorrow or your friends ask you about it, please feel free to direct them to this email address or our customer service center, which is not on this, but which is 259-INFO. That's 259-INFO. We'll get answers to your questions or any questions your friends and neighbors have. But right now I'm going to bring up Kelly Henderson, who's in charge of instruction K-12 in metro schools. And she's going to talk a little bit about what this means for teachers, because this is going to be a pretty big change for local teachers. And so Kelly's going to talk about that.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming out tonight to hear more about this decision that we're making. The first thing I want you to know is that we know that this is not an easy decision to make, and it takes a lot of work to get from the decision to the classroom. As Joe mentioned, we do feel that this is a perfect time to do this. We do have some very smart math teachers who are coming together right now to look at textbooks from lots of different publishers to make the decision as to what is the best textbook to use going forward with this integrated math decision. They will have a final decision by the 1st of April. So what this means is that as soon as the adoption of the textbooks is made, the teachers and coaches, we have what we call numeracy coaches in the district, math coaches, will come together and begin to look through the textbook and begin to write curriculum for the teachers to use in the classroom. And then from the curriculum, they can begin to create their lesson plans for next year. We also know that professional development is very important for teachers. We have teachers who have taught only Algebra 1 for many years, or only Algebra 2 for many years, or only geometry for many years. And so to move to an integrated format, we're going to have to make sure that they are supported. And we're going to do that through lots of professional development. The good thing about this move is that, as Joe also mentioned, Putnam County, and actually it's a consortium of districts. It's more than just Putnam County. It's really the Upper Cumberland region. The Upper Cumberland region is in their 2nd year of this adoption, so we have a lot to learn from them, and we have partnered with them. Part of this partnership is also learning from math content experts at Tennessee Tech, the University of Tennessee at Martin, and Vanderbilt University. So we have math content experts who are going to be sitting down with us from those 3 universities to help us develop and deliver the professional development for teachers. And so we're really excited about that partnership. As Joe also mentioned, we have some other counties who have either attempted to make this change last year and their teachers are reaching out, or that want to also make this move and are wanting to partner with us on the professional development. So we're very excited about that. If you are a parent of a current 8th grader, or really 6th through 8th grader, they're in the process or getting ready to register, and they will be registering for Integrated Math 1 instead of Algebra 1. And if you are a parent of a student who is in the 6th or 7th grade, just know that they can still get high school credit for Integrated Math 1 just like they could with Algebra 1. All the same opportunities are still available for Integrated Math 1 as were there for Algebra 1. And I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Okay. We really appreciate you being here. Firstly, thank you for being here for your PTSO meeting. And secondly, thank you for staying late to learn about math, which is such an exciting topic for me, and I'm sure other people in here as well. So thank you. It really means a lot that you're this interested in education that you stay for a math meeting. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful evening. Why not just stick with traditional math classes? Why make such a change?
Integrated math will give Metro students an edge by teaching in the same way as countries that are excelling in math. As teachers incorporate more project-based learning opportunities that bridge subjects and concepts, students may be expected to know different math concepts at different times. Without divisions between subjects, math concepts can be taught in a more logical progression and cohesive manner.
Is integrated math easier than algebra and geometry?
No. The 3 years of integrated math teaches the exact same concepts and standards as are taught in the separated math classes we currently use. Integrated math merely changes the order in which those concepts are taught, so they are given to students in a more cohesive manner. Students are held to the same expectations and taught with the same rigor.
My child took Algebra 1 this year. Will he have to take integrated math next year?
No. Integrated math will be phased in a year at a time, with Integrated Math 1 coming in 2015-16. Students who are taking or have taken Algebra 1 will not be affected.
Will this eliminate advanced math classes for high achievers?
No. Honors Integrated Math will be available at every level. Integrated Math 1 will be available for high school credit in all middle schools. Integrated Math is actually much better aligned with advanced academic programs like International Baccalaureate and Cambridge, because this is the way most of the world teaches math.
Will trigonometry, pre-calculus, calculus, statistics, and other advanced classes be affected?
No, those subjects already integrate algebraic and geometric concepts and will not change.
How will teachers be supported in this change?
All math teachers are certified in math, but many have specializations in certain subjects like algebra or geometry. Starting in the spring, teachers will have strong professional development support in making the change to integrated math. There will also be a 2-week summer institute for all affected math teachers to help them prepare for the new year. Vanderbilt University, Tennessee Tech, and UT Martin are all key partners in the professional development program. Their math experts will advise and help Metro teachers.
Has curriculum been developed for integrated math?
We have a team of teachers looking at textbooks right now. Once the textbook is adopted, some of the top math teachers and instructional coaches in Metro schools will dissect them and decide how they can be used in teaching the math standards. From there, the team will work with our university partners and teachers across the district to develop new scope and sequence documents for use in the upcoming school year.
How will all of this be paid for?
The district has applied for and won a 1-year grant for nearly $1 million to pay for professional development and materials related to the change to integrated math. There will be an opportunity to reapply for this grant once it is over.
Will new integrated math textbooks be adopted? How will that affect students still taking geometry and algebra 2?
Yes, the textbook committee will adopt new math textbooks in early 2015. They will be integrated math textbooks. The committee will not adopt new geometry and algebra 2 textbooks. The previous textbooks will be still used in those classes with additional materials and resources available as necessary until the courses are phased out.
Will integrated math classes have end-of-course exams that are aligned with what is taught?
Yes, the Tennessee Department of Education supports both traditional and integrated pathways. As new state assessments are developed, there will be separate end-of-course exams for each pathway. Students taking Algebra 2 next year will take an Algebra 2 end-of-course. Students who take Integrated Math 1 will take an Integrated Math 1 end-of-course.
Will colleges accept integrated math credits instead of traditional algebra and geometry credits?
Yes, colleges across the country see integrated math credits come from the hundreds of districts that have already made the switch to integrated. Furthermore, international students bring simple math credits from their high schools rather than Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. In Tennessee, the Department of Education began working with local universities in the lead-up to the integrated option being offered to make sure they knew the kinds of credits that would be coming their way.
What happens if students transfer mid-year from districts that don't teach integrated math?
This is actually an issue we face regularly in math and other subjects. When students transfer into Metro schools, we quickly assess where they are academically and what placement is most appropriate for their needs. If necessary, we can design modules for them to make up coursework or get caught up in a content area before joining the regular class. A similar approach would be taken in the case of integrated math. If a student comes from Algebra 1, teachers would determine what standards he or she has learned and what he or she may need to make up before joining Integrated Math 1.